Hi, everyone. I'm Shawna Young, CEO of Camelback Ventures. We are so excited to have a conversation today with Jessica Santana, one of our first fellows in our first cohorts. And she is the founder, co-founder, and CEO of American Tech. Camelback Ventures, many of you may know, we give early capital to early stage entrepreneurs by really solving for friends and family round. And 10 years ago, we saw Jessica and everything that she had to offer. Our founder, Aaron Walker, selected her to be part of our first cohort. So our conversation is going to go in and out. We're going to talk about the journey of Jessica and also give some advice that she will have for our founders as we go into the summer. So Jessica, how are you? Welcome.
Thanks. I'm doing well. I'm really excited to be here, let me say. And I also am just really excited to have this conversation with you. Looking back at the last 10 years, I feel like I have a lot to share. And there's no better person that I can think of sharing that with than you.
Oh, thank you, Jessica. Well, first, welcome to the board. You're our newest board member of Camelback Ventures.
Yes.
And I don't know if you knew, but you got your Alumni Leadership Award at Camelback Ventures at our Guardian Summit 2 years ago. It was my first one. Mm-hmm. And I just like, who is this incredible person? You were the only award winner of all the awards. And I was like, what is she doing? Your smile is infectious. Your energy is everything. Your personal story is so inspiring. So thank you for making time to share with us today.
Of course, of course.
So let's get into it.
Okay.
First cohort. What was it that you saw? What was your vision? What were you solving for? What did you want to innovate when you first started thinking about America on Tech? And then how did you see Camelback being part of that journey?
It's so interesting because when I think about what we started in 2014, it's definitely not what we've built now looking at the last 12 years. You know, when my co-founder and I started Brooklyn on Tech, because it wasn't always America on Tech, we were corporate tech consultants. We were the first people in our family to have a tech job. And I think going into that industry taught us a lot about what opportunity looks like, who gets to have it and who doesn't get to have it. And him and I being from the communities that we're from and the communities that we represent, we started asking ourselves big questions around, well, why are we here? And we don't think we're any more special than any of the students or families or talent in the communities that we're from. And why are they not here? Why are they not here with us? And so we went a lot deeper into like trying to answer that question. And then one day we got together at a coffee shop and we were like, maybe what we need to do is like stop trying to get the answer to that question and become the solution to getting more people that look like us into technology spaces. And so we crafted this master plan on coffee shop napkins. We started with 20 students in Brooklyn. And during that pilot, there was never an intention to grow a national organization. There was never an intention to scale. I believe that what we wanted to do was just create opportunity. And when Camelback came our way, this was the first time someone ever called me a social entrepreneur, because what I thought I was doing at the time really was just creating opportunities for students in the community that I'm from with my best friend. Yeah. And so in terms of what my vision was and what problem I wanted to solve was making sure that, one, we weren't leaving people behind in the spaces of innovation. And my vision was just to get students into tech. As I've gone deeper into this work and really understanding the systems that prohibit young people from entering this industry, I realized that so much of what actually I was trying to solve for was economic freedom. But at that time, I didn't have the language to describe it in that way. And I believe that Camelback saw something in me in that moment that I didn't even see for myself. You know, I'm first generation college graduate, first generation to be in corporate America, and also a first generation entrepreneur. And so all of these titles and different kind of pathways and identities weren't ones that people were speaking life into me to do. And so when Camelback was like, I like what you're doing, apply to this program, and then ultimately let me in it, I was just like, okay, this is a new pathway, a new way of thinking about my life that no one at that time ever said that I should think about my life in an entrepreneurial, builder, founder kind of way.
Every time I hear your story, I learn something new about you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so excited that I know your co-founder, Evan, also very well. The energy you all bring to this work is infectious. When Aaron tapped you on the shoulder and said, you should be part of our first cohort, what did he get right in what he was building and the experience that you got when you were the first cohort in Camelback?
That's such a good question. I think that looking back at that time, I believe what Aaron was trying to accomplish was pretty phenomenal during the time frame that Camelback launched.
2015 when you became a fellow, yep.
Yeah, this was during a time where not a lot of people were talking about the importance of social entrepreneurs that were proximate. No one was really adding fuel to the fire, to the conversation around investing in leaders of color. And to see him be in these spaces and navigate those spaces while also still trying to build his own organization, but at the same time simultaneously advocating for us was pretty incredible. And I think what it did for me was embolden my own action and embolden my own leadership and vision to ask myself, well, what am I going to do to make sure that I stand on the things that I believe in and continue the work of America on Tech, regardless of how hard it is? And so the things that I think he got right was that, one, he was building a solution that I personally believe was first to market. Yeah. I believe that he was doing it with the lens of coaching, capital, and connections. I know we've added more C's since then, but at that time, that is what I needed. Yeah. I needed coaching, and I got a coach. I needed capital, and I got capital. And I needed connections, and I got that. So many of the Cohort 1 fellows are still people that I lean on today. Like Geraldine from Knowledge House. She is one of my really great friends in the space. I'm still in touch with Logan Cohen, who was the founder of Kudzu. It's really incredible to see founders like Ami and what she's been able to build with Braven and have that be such a model for excellence on how I should continue to think about building my own venture. And so those three things, I believe, are the things that he got right from a programmatic perspective. And I also just believe the ways in which he led during that time really spoke to my own fears that it would be okay, regardless of how hard the work ahead of me was going to be, because I didn't actually know how hard it was going to be at that time. I came into the space very bright-eyed, very big-eyed, and I quickly learned that there were lots of things about social entrepreneurship that were going to be really hard.
Such a great answer. And when you think about how the landscape has changed, how it's not as easy to start your own venture. We have so many different tools and technologies that can be helpful with it. Do you see some difference in what do entrepreneurs need to know what to do now, social entrepreneurs, that they did not maybe have to do, or they have to be stronger at? Maybe you had to be stronger at when you were starting out, that maybe not as much now. Just what is that contrasting components? What are they?
Absolutely. So I believe that when I started in the space, I was always looking for folks who looked like me to give me permission to believe that I believed in these spaces. As time has passed, it is incredible that now I can enter rooms and see people that look like me, right? So from a role modeling standpoint, I believe that has changed significantly for entrepreneurs. You are no longer needing to become the thing that you're looking for. There are actual models of success and actual leaders that look like you that have been in this industry for a while, many of which lend their time and their talent and their treasures and their expertise to help other founders come up. That didn't really exist during that time. I think the other piece of the evolution for me that I can think about is the introduction of artificial intelligence has absolutely democratized how products and services are built. There was a time where capital was the name of the game. Capital would really constrain someone's idea. It would really not be it would be the difference between making it and not making it. And what we're realizing now is that capital is really important still, but it's not the only thing that founders need. And things like artificial intelligence tools are really making it easier to bring products to life, much more easier than it was back then. And I think the other thing I can think about is that There is somewhat of a more conscious ecosystem about why proximate entrepreneurs have to be invested in. Not everyone gets it still, but there are people in the space that do get it. And I believe that Camelback played a really important role in shaping the narrative about why we need to be investing in women and people of color at the same rates that we do their peers. And so those are the three things that I've seen evolve. I still think there's tremendous progress we need to make the level playing field more equitable for founders and entrepreneurs, especially those that come from marginalized backgrounds. But I believe that what we see today is a direct reflection of the contributions of Camelback and so many others that have been doing this work for a long time, that have been signaling to the sector that we're here and we're not going anywhere.
Thank you for that answer. And as you think about, if we get a little more tactical, if you think about the table stakes that an entrepreneur starting out now, they have an idea, they've crafted it, they almost have an MVP. Like, what are the things that they need to be thinking about as they're building their venture in 2026?
Ooh, that's good. The first thing I'll say is, one, you need to figure out how to unlock the right advisory. I believe that building alone, especially for those that are solo founders, it is probably one of the worst things you can do because you're in an echo chamber of your own thoughts and you need people to help refine your ideas. So the easier and quicker that you build your board, whether it's a governing board or an advising board of some sort, like you need that external guidance to make sure that you're building products that actually solve the problem that you are intending to solve. I believe the other thing that founders need is to really refine their value propositions. I believe that founders a lot of times are building things based on what they think the market needs versus what the market actually needs. And so the more you can do customer discovery and research and interviews with your potential stakeholders, I think the better you get to a product market fit. And then the third thing I believe that you need is visibility. And what I mean by that is I know that in the age of social media, a lot of people still downplay these tools. But if you are not excited about what you're building, there is a world where no one else is going to be excited. And I've seen that some of my biggest moments came from being able to be visible. So storytelling and narrative change also has to be a part of your strategy, because sometimes the problem that you're trying to solve is not even an immediate problem for other people that know, like for other people that are not proximate to it. And you need to create the conditions around your product and what you're trying to bring to life to get people to see, oh, okay, maybe what this person is trying to solve is a problem. How can I back them? How can I support them? And those are the three things I would say, tactically you should do. Obviously, more tactically is like have a comms plan, invest in social, invest in marketing. But at the high level, those are the three things I would be doing if I was going to be launching something new.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I remember when I was at MIT, I was there for 8 years running the Office of Engineer Outreach programs called MITES now. And I had my head down. I was doing the hard work. It was my first experience as executive director. And I kept thinking, the harder I work, people are going to recognize me. Obama's going to tap me on the shoulder and send me to the White House to be part of the National Science Fair. Nothing happened.
Nothing happened.
Because no one knew I was there. You know what I mean? So I think right now it's important to tell the stories and be okay, even as a private person. I'm pretty private, being on social media, sharing more of my personal life, not just I'm at this conference, but I've even started saying, it was a hard week. I went to yoga. I did this. I did these things because I have to think about how to center myself in the midst of this and tell the real story of what it means to be a founder. I think is also important. I think it's important to not just share the successes and also how long the journey is. I think it's at least 10 years and you're on the other side of the 10-year journey. Who is a Jessica now that wasn't necessarily the same when you started in, 2014?
That's such a good question. I started AOT when I was really young. I was 24 at the time. I was very fearless. I'm still fearless, but I think there was also a level of naivete at the time. I think this generation talks about it as being delulu. I was extremely delulu at 24 years old. There was nothing to me that was impossible. Anything could be achieved. And I still have those qualities in me now. But now I feel like I have better strategy and framework and process. I think back then I really just wanted good things to happen, and I didn't want to come up against any kind of opposition. I thought that it was ridiculous that these systems existed, and I still think it is ridiculous that systems of oppression exist in this society.
That makes sense.
But I still have like a naivete about me that I operate with, where I'm like, I believe that any and everything is possible. But now I just believe that I am more strategic than I was as a founder at 24. I always tell people that there is a difference between being a founder and being a CEO.
Yes.
And
let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Yes, for sure. At 24, I was a founder.
Yes.
Okay. At this big age, I'm a CEO.
Okay.
I'm an operator with a plan
Yeah.
and framework and strategy. Back then, I had that, but not to the extent and the level of rigor that I have it now.
Yeah.
And I've also learned the importance of bringing people along with me.
Yes.
You know, you cannot build an institution or an organization or a company alone.
Yeah.
The amount of time that you spend with your team, the amount of time you spend with talent on and developing talent on your team is really important. I believe that I didn't get that right always in the beginning.
Yeah.
I was trying to just build and figure it out. And I was like, I need you to come ready-made, you know? I don't have time. But now I'm realizing, I do have the time. And I think the best work that we do on this work is the work on this earth is the work that you do with humans.
Yes.
And I believe that beyond the legacy that I want to leave with students and families in my programs is that I want to say that I built an organization and I built a team that should they ever leave AOT, they'll go to another organization, they'll be able to take the skill set that we refined and be able to go make impact somewhere else as well.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It resonates so much because at the end of the day, people remember relationships and who cared about them. Remember one of my teammates telling me, because I could be results oriented sometimes all the time. And she's like, Shawna, people show up for you because they know you care. And the work's going to get done, candidly. It may not get done like the exact time or way and structure you want it, but it's going to get done. But your team knowing you care matters. And you brought up this piece around moving from being a CEO from a founder to a CEO, which is an operator. I talk about this a lot when I'm sharing, because often for folks who are founders, you're a self-proclaimed CEO, right? And how you really understand what it takes to run an organization, to build the operations, and to keep people behind you, even beyond raising the money if it's a nonprofit, is so important. So thank you for sharing that important advice. I want to also talk a little bit as we start to wrap up. You're now part of our board.
Yes.
Welcome
Thank
to
you.
the Camelback even board family.
Absolutely.
I would love to know, why did you say yes? And what do you hope to do and help us steward as a member of our board?
Thank you for asking that. So when my organization turned 10 years old, I was at a point of inflection where I was like, wow, just like over the last decade, you really left it all on the table. And the wildest dreams that you've had for America on Tech have now become alive. I was also asking myself, how are you going to meet this moment? Because at AOT turned 10 in 2024. And that was also a very pivotal time in our country. And even though there's so much work to do at America on Tech, I really felt a big calling from God to ask myself how I was going to be a steward for other things that I was passionate about. And one of the biggest things I always tell people is that America on Tech became what it became because there were certain things that happened for me as a founder that I realized were not happening for other people. And I didn't think, it was, again, one of those moments where I was like, I did not think I was any more qualified than any other founder I've ever met. I just honestly think that there were pieces of access that I got that I was really, really, really lucky to get that is not scaling to everyone else. And when I think about the first investment that I got from Camelback Ventures, which is what really kicked us off, full time in 2015, I was like, this is the organization I want to spend my time with, because at AOT, I can continue to grow serving students and families. But if I could actually spend my time also helping an organization help their organizations create impact, then my impact actually multiplies. Like, how can I codify my learnings, my thinking, my thoughts, my methodologies, and actually hand it and be a part of the process to refine how we define leadership in this country, how do we invest in leaders in this country, and how do we democratize access for them to have the tools and the resources to really build things from scratch that they are only uniquely able to build from scratch because of where they're from, what they represent, and who they are. And I thought to myself, Camelback is the organization I want to be spending my extra time with, because I know how pivotal it was for me to have this resource. And I can imagine that if Camelback continues to grow and I can help be a part of that journey, that there are going to be more Jessicas and there are going to be more Evans and Amis and Geraldines. And if that could be also be part of my legacy outside of the work that I do at AOT, then I think I'm going to be in my rocking chair at 70 years old. Like, yeah, I met the moment.
I did that.
And I did that.
I still remember when you came up to me and you're like, Shawna, this is what I want to do. And it stuck with me the entire time. I want you to know you were the top of my list when it came to who we wanted to be on the board. And I'm excited about the energy that you're going to bring. You also remind me of the importance of founders becoming not just CEOs, but becoming investors. And so as we think about our next grouping of people who will be philanthropists who will invest in our founders, it really is the current founders, right? Because
Absolutely.
we know institutions will only do so much. So as we round out this conversation, get your thoughts on what does that transition look like to move from really running your own organization to think about being a vehicle that will fund the next generation, not just through your programming, but as an individual, either angel investor or member of a board. Just talk a little bit about this investor transition that happens with founders often.
Absolutely. I'm so happy you mentioned that. I've actually, in 2024, again, during that moment of inflection, I became part of the Goody Nation Angel Investor Fellowship. And I was like, I need to understand, I get investment from a philanthropic standpoint. I don't know how it totally works yet from a for-profit standpoint.
Yeah.
Let me understand the ways in which capital moves for-profit startups. And I did that fellowship, and it introduced me to another way in which capital moved. And also at that time, I had already met the threshold for being an accredited investor. And I was just like, it's time for me to start doing this. And so that transition for me is about power. It's about resource mobilization, and it's about betting on people the ways in which people bet on me. And so I have actually been actively accepting deal flow to myself. I haven't made any investments yet, but if you're watching this and you want to pitch me, please do. And my hope is that, with the blessings that have been bestowed upon my life, that I can continue to be a blessing to other people and be a part of their journeys to building cool things that solve really big problems in our society. And the transition, I will obviously say, it's a paradigm shift. You go from raising capital to deploying it, and you start to realize that maybe the set of questions that I'm always getting as a founder, now I'm asking the founders these questions, and it's because I hold the dollars. So even on an ego check, right, I got to make sure that I'm not perpetuating the same behaviors that I don't like done to me. But it's been a great learning opportunity. And I believe that every founder who makes the transition from being a founder to being a CEO to then eventually being an investor should really think about how their experiences building something can inform their own investment thesis when they are working with startups to figure out how they're going to deploy their own capital.
I'm so excited for you. Congratulations on
Thank
that
you.
journey. You're going to pick some great winners, we know. And even if they don't give you billions, you supported someone. So thank you for doing that. Jessica, we're excited. You're going to be at Guardian Summit this summer. Now you're part of the board. Just want to get a quick sort of closure and shout out for those of you who are watching. Please join us this summer. Guardian Summit, New Orleans, going to be several conversations. Jessica will be in the building. And it's so important for us to remember how you start and who believes in you. And Camelback, we talk about first checks a lot. Who gives you that first check? Who believes in the idea that you have? And even if it doesn't work, you can do it again. So we want to thank you for your time. Thank you for being an extreme example of what it means to invest back in our community.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here again.